Good morning, everybody. The war on motorists is taking a new turn this year with the introduction of what is being called ULEP. This is different to ULEZ, which is coming in London under Sadiq Khan, where there are emissions charges to drive into the whole of Greater London. So if you have an older vehicle, you now have to pay £12.50 per day just to drive your car in Greater London, even if that's just half a mile or so. But ULEP, as it's being called, is ultra low emissions parking. So what councils are doing around the country, a small number of councils at the moment to begin with, but many more have plans to implement this, is to have different charging bands for parking your car in a council car park, or even sometimes on the roads in a council area. And the latest council to introduce this is Bath in Somerset. And there were some articles about this yesterday because they've just recently introduced this. So what happens if you drive your car into Bath? There's already a clean air zone, which is not for cars, but it's for vans and lorries and buses and etc. But if you want to park your car in Bath, the charges are already quite high. But if you have an older car, you're going to have to pay more. So for 2 hours parking in a council-run car park, the charges, instead of being a flat fee, they now range from £3.40 to £4.70 for staying 2 hours. So if you have an electric car, or you have a newer petrol or diesel car, which is Euro 6 standard, you'll pay less. But if you have an older car, you'll pay more, which again is another tax on the poor. So if you're not wealthy enough to buy a really expensive new car, then you're going to have to pay more to park in the city centre there. There are other councils around the country that have introduced this as well, mostly in London so far, in inner London. I'll give you some examples. One is the City of London, the square mile. They have a 100% difference in charging. So if you have an electric vehicle, it's £5 an hour, I think, to stay there if you park your car. If you've got an older vehicle that is not ULEZ compliant, you'll get £10 an hour charge. So if you want to drive into London, you've not only got to pay your ULEZ to Sadiq Khan. If you then want to go and park in the City of London, if you've got some business to do there and you've got an older vehicle, you'll be charged another £10 an hour to park in the City of London, which is 100% more than if you have an electric or hybrid vehicle, where you'll only pay £5 an hour. One of the worst is Kensington and Chelsea, where that's also in central London, obviously just to the west of the city of Westminster. Charges there range from £1.50 an hour to £6.80 an hour. So that is a huge differential. I mean, that is what is that if you work it out? That's about 4.5 times more. So, what's that? 350% more you will pay if you have an older vehicle that you have to pay the ULEZ for than if you have an electric or hybrid vehicle. So I've given you 3 examples there. I'll give you another one. Lambeth charges vary. Lewisham also charges vary from £1.50 to £4.40 an hour. So that's 3 times as much if you have an older diesel vehicle in Lewisham, also in central London, than if you have an electric or hybrid vehicle. So Bath is a Liberal Democrat council, Lewisham is a Labour council, Kensington and Chelsea is a Tory council, a fake Conservative council. So there's no difference between all of the old parties, Tory, Labour, Lib Dem, Green. They will all be implementing this new ULEP scheme with the local councils are doing to further the war on motorists against you, and particularly against poorer people who are not able to buy a new car for tens of thousands of pounds. I think this is utterly deplorable, and it is going to harm businesses in town centres who want more customers, because what this is essentially going to do is put people off driving into town centres, and people who can't afford to do it, well, what are they going to do? They will buy stuff on Amazon and they'll buy stuff online rather than going into the town centre and spending a pleasant day shopping for things, having a meal, having a coffee, going to the pub, going to another shop, maybe going to the cinema, which you used to be able to do for a very low parking fee, because councils used to recognise that they needed to provide lots of parking space quite cheaply for people to come in, because that helps the businesses in the town centre to keep their towns and cities thriving. And so then they would actually get more business. It would be good for the town, it would be good for the city, it would be good for the district and the borough, because they'd have lots of businesses there. And businesses also that have physical premises, of course, also pay rates to the council at the moment. Now, that's a system I don't particularly agree with. I think it needs to be changed and completely updated for the 21st century, but that's the system they have at the moment. So really, in the long run, the councils are really shooting themselves in the foot, because they're going to have fewer people driving into the towns and cities, fewer people spending money in businesses in city centres and town centres, which means businesses are not going to make as much money, which means they'll go out of business, which means that they're not going to be paying business rates to the council. And what will happen is that many of the shops, as has already happened, get taken over by charity shops, which don't have to pay business rates, because charity shops are exempt from business rates. But do we really want to see all of our town centres taken over by charity shops? And also Turkish barbers, which is another issue entirely. I'm sure there's a little bit of laundering going on there. I mean, you have towns and cities which used to have, viable businesses selling goods that people want. And now, I went to a town the other day, small town, and there were about 5 Turkish barbers in a town the size of 20,000 people. But that kind of town, is in the Midlands, doesn't need 5 Turkish barbers that are all sitting empty all day, that used to be occupied by viable businesses paying their business rates, and now they're occupied by these shops which are quite suspicious, because they don't have any customers, but they seem to keep on multiplying all over the place. We don't really want our town centres to be bereft of our normal viable businesses and other things there that people can go to enjoy, such as restaurants and pubs and entertainment centres and so on. So these councils really are engaging in a war on motorists, which makes no sense, and is just going to further destroy the livability and the enjoyability and the viability of our city centres and town centres. It's wrong, and it's all part of Agenda 2030, 17 Sustainable Development Goals, net zero, climate alarmism, all this stuff that goes together that I've mentioned 100 times. And I'll make an appeal again to you. If you don't want this, get involved in politics. Don't leave your local councils to be run by the Tories, Labour, Lib Dem, Greens that are bringing in this new emissions charging for parking, which is going to make it much, much more expensive for most people to park their cars. I mean, even the lowest fees are higher than what they were before. I mean, when I was young, it used to be very, very cheap, and a flat fee to go and park your car in a town centre, it would be the equivalent of maybe £1 an hour, and then 2 hours might be £1.50, and then 3 hours would be £2 or something equivalent. But parking fees now start way, way higher than that just for 1 hour. So in most places, and I went to park my car the other day in Chichester, and it was £5.20 for 3 hours, which is such ridiculously expensive to park your car. And that was on a Sunday as well. I was just going to church and I had to pay that much to park my car in the centre of the city. Absolutely ridiculously expensive. Whereas before, on a Sunday, parking used to be free, and they would just charge you Monday to Saturday. But they're just trying to shake you down for any money you can get and use this climate alarmism hoax about carbon dioxide being harmful in order to charge motorists more money, so that they can shake you down and get more money for themselves. I mean, part of the reason also, which is tangential to this, but still relevant, is that councils are grossly financially irresponsible. I mean, we've seen now 8 councils in England go bankrupt over the last 3 or 4 years, and there's 20 or so more that are on the brink of bankruptcy, and there's dozens more that are at risk of going bankrupt. So, the local councils are in a very, very parlous financial state because of irresponsibility over years and years, where councillors are just they're not taking their fiscal responsibility, their fiduciary responsibility to their voters and to the council seriously, and are just spending money like water because it's not their money and they don't care, and they're spending stuff on white elephant projects and ridiculous schemes and levelling up, and near me there's a place with a lovely green park, and they want to just rip it all up and put in some new benches, which is not going to enhance, concrete it over and put in some new space age sort of oval stone benches in a place that doesn't need it. I mean, absolute waste of money that the councils are embarking on. And then they come back and they say, well, we're going to fill our financial black holes by charging motorists more and by charging older vehicles more to park. But they're going to shoot themselves in the foot because, people are just going to stop coming and parking their cars in town and city centres if this happens. So my point is here, don't leave your councils to be run by Tory, Labour, Lib Dem and Green. Come and join me in the Heritage Party. We are going to make as many challenges as we possibly can in all the local elections which are happening. There are more local elections in May 2024. There are council elections in England in May 2025, which people are getting ready for now. Come and join us. Get ready to stand in seats in councils so you can take over councils and you can stop this ULEP emissions charging and variable rates of emissions charging, which means that people are not going to be able to park their cars in city centres, and we can turn this around and just smash the whole of this Agenda 2030 climate alarmism nonsense, which is making our towns and cities worse, with extra charging and many other ridiculous things that they're trying to bring in. Please do consider it. If you want to join me in the Heritage Party, heritageparty.org is our website. You can sign up as a member there. It's £25 a year to join the party. You can subscribe to our newsletter, and you can apply to be a candidate there for local elections and Westminster elections as well. Thank you for listening, everybody, and God bless you all.